Good afternoon. It's Andrew Jenkins from ArCompany. Thanks for joining us today for Social Selling Summer School. Advocacy, the secret weapon for attracting buyer attention. Appreciate your taking the time today. And we want to move to the next slide. So again, I'm Andrew Jenkins, VP of Strategy for ArCompany. And with me is Chad McCaffrey, VP Strategy and Business Development for PostBeyond. And we're going to spend some time with you today to share our experience related to social selling and supported by a robust content strategy. So this is just, as they call it, logo salad. This is just highlights from our industry experience for both ArCompany and PostBeyond. Both B2C and B2B brands from Canada and the US and beyond. So the focus of today, we want to show you why social selling is important, why content in support of social selling is critical, looking at the changing buyer, their changing needs and their changing behavior, the secrets of micro-marketing, and the efficiency, consistency required when it comes to content, and looking at preventing risks from a corporation and brand point. An overview of PostBeyond's content management solution, the Jumpstart program, and ArCompany's area of expertise as it pertains to rolling out a social selling initiative across an enterprise.
Thanks, Andrew. That was a great intro. This is Chad McCaffrey here with PostBeyond. So just want to touch quickly, to further go through a bit of an agenda here. Big thing today is going to be sales focused, focusing on, as a salesperson, how we can grow our prospect network, certainly leveraging LinkedIn and Twitter, attracting the new buyer. So the big focus, again, being the new buyer, how things are transformed for the sales professional today, how we can win and accelerate wins with our clients, and really reduce our micro-marketing costs, and the idea that as a salesperson, we also need to be a marketer.
So change is afoot, as we like to say. Salespeople were accustomed to, or organizations more broadly, have been accustomed to broadcast marketing. Who we are, what we do, as we sometimes like to say, buy our stuff. This is why we're great, that kind of thing. And that's changed. A lot of salespeople relied on cold calling. Salespeople were valued on their Rolodex that they brought to the table. Corporations required or relied on feedback surveys from their customer, often calling them the voice of the customer, whether it's a focus group or a survey. But now, with the disruption that social media has caused, there's an increasing reliance on public profiles. There is increasing reliance on content and the context in which that content is consumed and distributed, and the social intelligence surrounding our own content, but the user profiles, the who, the what, the where, and the why. The new buyer, again, you're in a situation where people are increasingly reliant on referrals from their network, increasingly reliant on opinions and reviews from their network and beyond, and they're doing a lot more research up front. There was a recent study from LinkedIn that buyers are about 60% down the decision-making path before they engage a salesperson. So increasingly, salespeople are becoming reliant on content to influence that purchase path, to increase their chances of becoming the referred, and to convey their thought leadership so that when a person is further down their purchase decision path, that they become the salesperson that they reach out to.
Again, back to a little bit of the micro-marketing strategy and how this relates to content. But really today we're focusing on the salesperson, how the salesperson can be top of mind, really be, whether it's in front of their prospects or their audience in general, and how important that is for them to have regular communication. In today's and everything Andrew's mentioned, the idea that we can be in front of those people across Twitter and LinkedIn, even on Facebook as well. They see our thought leadership. They see that we are as a trusted advisor, and that's become an extremely important part of salesperson's day-to-day activities.
One great example of building trust that I like to share is river pools. For those of you who aren't familiar with river pools, Marcus Sheridan, one of their co-founders, found himself, they founded the company in 2001, but they found themselves in 2008 in a difficult position with the financial crisis in the U.S. So here they were selling a luxury item that's typically paid for with discretionary income, discretionary cash. So how could they offset the decline in sales and revenue as it was caused by the financial crisis happening at that time in the U.S.? So they came up with the idea of blogging and content related to all the questions that came up during their sales calls when people were considering buying a pool, and all the objections that might arise. Things like, how much does a tile pool cost versus a vinyl? What's the average annual cost of maintenance for a pool? All those kinds of questions that arose, they wrote blogs to answer each of those questions. And as a result, they had a robust blog addressing those questions and garnered a great deal of traffic of interested parties, both existing customers and prospects. And as a result, so founded in 2001, dealing with the economic downturn of 2008, started the blog in 2009, but in 2010 they installed over 600 pools. And today they are the most visited pool site in the world, because they're answering the questions that arose in those sales calls, and they're answering the questions that come from their broader audience. So again, if you focus on content that provides value, that's informative and educational, you're building a reputation for thought leadership, you're influencing the purchase cycle as people move down their purchase path, all stemming from a robust content strategy. And now, Marcus Sheridan from River Pools has gone on to offer his expertise from a content-driven social selling point of view to other organizations. And another great example that I like to share from a thought leadership standpoint is Indium Corporation. Now, Indium Corporation makes solder paste. This is the material used to adhere electronic components to assembly boards inside electronic devices like an iPhone or computer and what have you. Well, I interviewed the director of marketing from Indium, and their motto is content to contact to cash. They saw a 600% increase in lead generation from one quarter to the next with their content strategy. They have 72 keyword-driven blogs written by 13 of their engineers. If they can write about solder paste and make it profitable for them, surely you have a story that you can tell as an organization or even as an individual that would be of interest or relevant to your buyer. The director of sales for Indium said to the director of marketing that the social media sales leads were the best that they've ever received. They were the most qualified because of the amount of time they spent digesting and consuming content provided by Indium. When it comes to a content strategy, as I said, if Indium can make solder paste sexy and make it profitable for them, surely there's a story that you can tell. But if you're not sure about where to start, take a look at your existing content, even if it's physical collateral. What is it about your marketing collateral that you're trying to convey? What's the story that you're telling right now? What are the kinds of stories that you want to tell, and in what channels? Whether it's for LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, or other social media channels or other online channels, be they discussion forums or what have you. And look at what you have, look at where you want to go, what gaps exist, and what do you need to do to fill them. And if you've got some existing content, how can you repurpose it for other channels? An example I like to give, if I've got an analyst report in a PDF format, can I take that analyst report, interview the analyst, summarize the interview, and make that either a 2-minute video for YouTube, maybe it's a 500 to 1,000 word blog that gives highlights of the extended report. Each of the 5 highlights that might be in the blog could be 5 distinct headlines for Twitter. that drives back links to either the video interview, to the blog, or to the longer report. At the end of the day, I've still used the same underlying digital asset. I've just repurposed it for multiple channels, chunked it up. Some people are visual, so they would want the video. Some people want the highlights, so the blog would be perfect for them. Some people want to take away the longer report. I've addressed each person's distinct content needs with the same asset. And then once you've organized the content the way you would like in terms of format and distribution channel, to do some of the heavy lifting and consider, how do I put that to a calendar? Is there something coming up in the next quarter, or are there multiple marketing initiatives in the next quarter that I need to map to my calendar first and do my content planning in and around that? So the more organized your calendar, the better. And as well, once your calendar is organized, it gives you the flexibility to be engaging in and around your content. Some of you may be aware or may already have it. This is an example from LinkedIn from a content standpoint, and the new influencer program that the likes of Richard Branson and other well-known individuals. LinkedIn has become what I call a content juggernaut, and the influencer program was where they got started. But now, as of February, LinkedIn started rolling out LinkedIn Publisher. It will eventually be rolled out to every member of LinkedIn. And what, for those of you who aren't familiar, Publisher is housed within your own individual LinkedIn profile. And it's essentially a blogging platform inside LinkedIn, and it enables you as an individual to be your own influencer. But what's great about it is all of my network is made aware when I publish a post, and I see on an ongoing basis how many people saw my post and how many liked it and how many commented on it. And if it was retweeted or liked on Facebook or shared on Google Plus or shared across LinkedIn. And again, I get a sense over time as I produce multiple posts what kinds of content resonate with my audience. And that's housed within LinkedIn, and it's free to all eventually, and it's just in the process of being rolled out. One of the byproducts or the benefits of pushing content out within LinkedIn or sharing and distributing is that I call it karma. It comes back to you. So I had shared a blog post that I'd written on the ArCompany website. And in this case, John reached back out to me. I had referenced someone in the post who we know mutually. And he referenced her, in this case, Jill, customized his message to me and invited me to join his network. So simply by creating and distributing content, original content, my network is expanding organically. I'm getting validation that what I'm writing about is actually resonating with people. And as I mentioned, my network expands as a byproduct. And given that John already likes what I'm sharing and has validated my thought leadership in the area of social selling, there's a potential that I could go back to him and perhaps have a follow-on conversation and maybe even a referral of some kind. Now, we've talked about original content, but LinkedIn also enables me to track if I'm sharing content from other sources. So in this instance, I shared an article about an interview with Warren Buffett. And if we follow that 80-20 rule, where we're sharing 20% of content that's from ourselves, I'll call it, adhering to our own sales and marketing agenda, but I want to complement the content with the other 80% from complementary sources that are non-competitive, but we feel would be well received by our audience. LinkedIn, in this instance, will show you how well that content is performing, how many people saw it, how many people liked it, if it generated any comments. And what's also interesting here is I see whether it was resonating with my first level connections, my second, or third. That's a rare to know about the kind of collateral that you're sharing, be it electronic or not. Not something you see in the offline world. The not just related to content, but in general for social selling, there's a variety of key performance indicators, both qualitative and quantitative. As I mentioned, John reached out to me because of a particular piece of content that I shared that resonated with him. So, he's a perfect example of that my community grew as a result of the content that I shared. He was engaged. I'm seeing through LinkedIn the different analytics that they provide, how well my content was being liked, being shared, being retweeted, the views and the comments, etc. But we can also map conversation volume, the share of voice that our brand might be getting, or particular subjects that we're talking about. Sentiment. Sentiment has been a long-standing metric as it relates to social, and the impressions and reach of your content. Click-throughs to your landing page. Often people talk about what's the ROI of social media. Well, what's great about content is plays an integral role in proving ROI. I show that if I share this kind of content in these kinds of channels, if I've designed a closed loop, I can see that content in certain channels drives traffic to a particular landing page or portion of my website. And so I see site traffic go up. I look at conversion rates and click-throughs. And ideally, I'm looking for people either signing up for a webinar, downloading a white paper, requesting more information, or identifying themselves in some way as a prospect. And ultimately, moving them down the funnel to schedule a sales call, maybe a face-to-face meeting, ultimately to getting a proposal written or some offer being conveyed to them, and the ultimate proof of ROI, sales made or sales closed. So one of the things we've been talking about as it pertains to distribution of content, content can be hard to manage. We talked about the multitude of channels that you need to consider sharing content through, the different types of audiences that you're going after, the different formats that people might wish to consume content in. And so this is where the platform PostBeyond takes away a lot of the heavy lifting and can help enterprises organize and manage content from a social selling point of view at scale. And I'm going to let Chad explain more.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. That was great. So yeah, as he just mentioned, with PostBeyond from a technology perspective, what we've really worked on is being able to scale a lot of the things that Andrew's mentioned. He talked about the specific salesperson and how they can leverage things like LinkedIn and these various platforms. But when we're in the enterprise environment or working with a large amount of salespeople, how as marketers or members of the social or communication teams, how are we supporting those people? We know that it's very important that they are micro-marketers in their own right nowadays, but how do we ensure compliance, really drive adoption, and really save them time? That's the idea. And with PostBeyond, what we've been able to create is a platform and a technology that pulls this all together. So I just wanted to run through just a real quick case study just with regard to advocacy in general and how social selling is a major part of this. Typically, when we start working with any enterprise or any organization in general, they have a certain reach across social. So whether it be on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, we look at those networks from a brand perspective, and typically they'll have a number as you'd see here. In this case, around 5,000. With going after 800 brand advocates, and from an internal standpoint in this case, we're able to grow the reach of this content from the teams that are creating it day by day 16.5 times. And that's just an example to show how far now this content can reach through these advocates and how strong the social selling capacity can grow that way. A real quick example I wanted to run through today was just some work we're doing with Starbucks. Starbucks is obviously a very strong brand, an organization with a lot of different employees on various different levels. So for them, a big focus is how do they pull this all together? They're working very hard on their content, and at the brand level, they want to share this with the localized levels as well. So within our system, I'm just going to give you a very quick sort of visual view as to what a day-to-day employee or salesperson would see. And you can see with the system here, each employee has access to content that's set up and served up for them. So as Andrew mentioned, how do we ensure compliance? How do we, ensure consistency going across, all of our team? How do we serve it up for people so they know they have one place to come and they can publish and share information to their own networks that is going to be on brand? That's what we've really focused on, and it's just a bit of a view as to how they do that. Each tile here is a piece of social content. So it's very visual. Even for the person who isn't the most versed with social media, they can understand that each tile is a post that they can share. They have the ability to schedule or publish directly to their Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn directly from the platform or the portal, which makes it super simple for them, and they don't have to source content. They don't have to, copy and paste it. Any of those sort of activities are taken out of their hands, and we can just make it really simple for them to share to their networks in a consistent way. One thing we wanted to touch on is just here's a quick view of what this looks like on Twitter. So just to see this certainly from the publishing side, but now on the outside, internet-facing side, you have a branded link. In this case, it's SBucks Careers, but we do work with many different organizations where we set up some branded links for them. So every link that comes out, not only can we understand that it's coming from the platform and really helping drive that, but we can also really help them drive their brand that way as well. The big thing around implementing PostBeyond, what we're working a lot with our company on, is visibility. All of this work that goes into content nowadays, whether it's for many of the different success metrics that Andrew mentioned and KPIs, we want to understand holistically as a business what is happening. Everybody has their own profiles across these networks. We want to enable them to have a really strong personal brand. We want to help our salespeople look and become trusted advisors. But we want true visibility into what this is doing for us as an organization. So that's what we've created.
Just to add, as I was showing you with in LinkedIn, you're seeing analytics for how my publisher post might resonate, or how far the kind of reach that it captures. Same thing with any content that I share. But with what you're showing here in terms of the dashboard, so there's analytics within the LinkedIn platform for an individual, but the power here is that you're rolling up the cumulative stats for an entire workforce and giving management and everyone involved that broader visibility. It's all well and good for me to do something inside LinkedIn in an isolated point of view, but to see the cumulative effect of having a whole bunch of my employees, be they salespeople, marketers, or simply people empowered to be acting as ambassadors, to see that amplification effect. I just wanted to add that.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, that's a great point. I know we mentioned that. There's individual stuff. So really, we want to accumulate all of this together. We want to understand as an entire business now how we're driving this forward and really transform our organization to become a true social business. A bit more on the statistics side, we have got quite deep here to really understand. So for those marketers that really are helping facilitate social selling within the sales organization, we can now see really what this is helping them with and really get deep on those stats even more so as far knowledge where we want to continue creating white papers, what type of stuff is resonating with not only our corporate audience, but now with the brand new employed audience that we've created. The big part that we wanted to touch on together is really how we roll this out across an entire firm or an entire enterprise. And one thing we've really been working hard together on is really identifying how, from a strategic point of view, we can implant this into an organization and help them through the first 90 to 120 days be really successful with this sort of adoption. Obviously, getting everyone engaged with it, not only the salespeople, but in other parts of the organization is very important. And as a team, we've been able to work together to really do that, and we jump-started in a specific way.
Great, Chad. Your Jumpstart program is well aligned with the approach that we take for rolling out a social media initiative in enterprises and the social selling programs that we deploy. It really comes down to looking at the context, as we like to describe it. the power of the PostBeyond solution is obvious, but it's more a matter also of understanding, okay, where and how can it be used optimally. It's understanding, before we implement any type of technical solution, what are the corporate objectives? Where and how can social media and social selling complement those corporate objectives? Is everyone clear on that? And if we're going to enable sales, marketing, and other employees as brand ambassadors, do we have the proper policies and procedures in place? Is everyone on the same page? We might have multiple departments. Is our initiative integrated from a marketing standpoint? It sounds, I know, a lot like management consulting, but in some cases it really is. That we have to do some situational analysis up front. There may be some training, confirmation that policies and procedures are in place, that you've got the right alignment, and identifying the objectives and defining the strategy and tactics to achieve those objectives, because you want a solution like PostBeyond and the broader social selling program to be a success at the end of the day. So to recap, we've touched very briefly on the new buyer. It's no longer broadcasting to them, but it's engaging them with content. It's influencing them along their purchase path, and ideally positioning yourself as a thought leader so that you'll either be engaged directly by them or you'll become the likely referred party to them. It's identifying the gap in your existing content inventory. What kind of content do you have? What content do you need? What channels will you distribute it over, and in what formats? In terms of micro-marketers, I'll turn that back to Chad for a moment.
So again, just establishing that micro-marketing and micro-blogging is a major part of everyone's day-to-day. You look at Twitter, the amount of content that people consume, whether it's their news or just whether they're vetting any sort of new buying that they might be doing. It's a very important part to establish that across the organization and really embed that in the entire workday of your staff. Salespeople, the big thing we're working on is really saving them time. They have a lot of things to do with regard to deals and pipeline that they're working on. We want to embed this and really make it simple for them to be a part of it and be micro-marketers while also being able to focus their time where it's needed most.
Yeah, we know that sales teams and marketers and employees have a busy day. So if you can put a system in place, and not only that's a combination of technology and methodology, such that for a few minutes a day they can establish and continue to build their thought leadership, to engage to grow and engage an audience. Do the heavy lifting for them to some degree in the beginning, but make it manageable. People talked about doing social media off the corner of their desk. So is there a way, again, through both technology and methodology, for people to do this? One thing I wanted to highlight, it's all well and good to talk about social selling and social technologies, but when we're talking about social selling and the disruption that social media has caused, it's really about adopting a new mindset. As we talked about, we have a new buyer. Well, we also have a new means of selling. It's now necessary to change the way we behave from engaging that audience, because the audience is exhibiting a new behavior through the content they consume, the content they share. So those are all important aspects to keep in mind.
And really just to touch on the jumpstart, when it comes to that, we've established a really easy way, a turnkey way to get this going within your organization, whether it's, within the sales organization specifically and really wanting to enable those reps, or, looking at even in a broader scope and getting everybody involved. We've really established a way together to do that in a very efficient way, ensure that this is adopted and it's a way that we can transform the organization.
You also want to look at, once you've got it rolling, is what sort of metrics or the KPIs are you tracking? How often are you tracking those so that you can be adjusting your strategy and tactics as you progress? What content's working, what content isn't, time of day, time of week. When you think about calendar, over the next quarter, what are your marketing plans as an organization? Where and how does social complement those marketing initiatives? And I recognize it's a lot to consider, but the better the planning, the better the management and measurement, the more likely your social media initiative will succeed. So I just wanted to see if there's any questions. Again, you can use SSSS hashtag on Twitter if you have any questions, or you can put questions in the WebEx window. And just while we're on that, Chad, from your perspective, all the different deployments that you've had of PostBeyond, beyond what we've already shared, are there any, I guess, key success criteria that you would like to share or would like to identify?
Sure. I think, Andrew, it's very interesting to see how organizations now are really transforming before our eyes, right? I mean, I think the one thing to consider a lot, we've seen some great, the younger, the millennial generation, right? I think the new connected users, that's one thing to really leverage, I think, with the know-how, not only from a technology perspective, but when the mind share that really we've been working on, the core to PostBeyond is really those individuals that are working in that marketing context, in content day by day. They can easily spread that mind share with everybody now. And that's one thing to consider, is really being able to leverage the parts of the organization and being able to share that cross-functionally, cross-departmentally, and really show some success from that, for sure.
Just to qualify, you're not suggesting to use the intern, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's always a funny topic of discussion, for sure. I think we do have a couple questions here, Andrew. I was just looking at the one we have here from Tim is, how do you become a LinkedIn publisher, or is it by invitation only?
So LinkedIn initially rolled it out to about 25,000 people back in February, and they've been gradually rolling it out. There is a link where you can request an early invite, and we'll share that with the participant of today's, all the participants for today's webinar. But I'm also seeing in some discussion groups that I'm a part of that people are getting LinkedIn rolled out to them, LinkedIn Publisher rolled out to them without having requested an early invite. So sort of a two-part answer. One, everyone's going to get it eventually, but two, there may be a way to expedite getting it. And there is no cost, and it is not predicated on necessarily having a paid account.
Another one here from Tim quickly was, could I add people outside my organization to populate content? So in terms of kind of the Starbucks example over. So I can take that one. Certainly you can. That's one thing we're working on a lot. Certainly we've been talking today a lot about the internal employees, but when it comes to advocacy in general, really depending on your business model, if you have strong channel partners or you're working with agencies, any people that are really a part of your brand voice and a part of this strategy can be involved with the system. So it's really just when we're rolling things out, setting them up, if it's agencies or adding content, we have various different ways that we can administer that. So yes, that's definitely possible, and we're really trying to get as many advocates we have involved with something like PostBeyond.
So just to clarify, if I were a charity or a nonprofit and I had volunteers that I wanted to mobilize, I could do that with PostBeyond?
Exactly. So exactly. We do work for, a lot of times inside out is the way I like to put it. So sometimes it starts with the employees and then it really spreads out to, partner advocates as well as even consumer advocates, depending on, what it is you sell or what it is you do. And then we have some where they want to start from the outside in. So maybe it is they have a really strong, consumer base, and those are the advocates they're wanting to get after. You have PR things that we're doing with regard to those individuals, and then it kind of comes back in. But you can look at it either way. Really, advocacy in terms of social media is really any of the sharing economy that's now opened up across these networks. really enabling those people in a really easy way to be sharing our content and be a part of our what we're doing.
So is it safe to say then, when you talk about from the inside out, that this idea of what I call building a social enterprise, where your conversation may begin with marketing or with sales, but if you're actually empowering and mobilizing employee advocates inside, key ambassadors on the outside, that they're now potentially walking the walk, and it is about a richer dialogue with a multitude of people versus initially several years ago, social from an enterprise standpoint was housed in one particular team. To a certain degree that still occurs, but now they're acting as a hub to a variety of other parts of the business. But this is where a well-integrated and coordinated effort supported by powerful technology can make that more seamless and set an organization or an enterprise up for greater success. But I just wondered if you had other additional comments on that.
Yeah, that's a great area to look at. I think, when it comes to any of that, the rollout across enterprise now, it's very interesting, and it's identifying, like you mentioned, Andrew, I know from a lot of the kind of, when it comes strictly to the social selling, which is kind of our topic today, it's really identifying those individuals, right, that are a part of it, and how can we really help them scale this whole process, right? So integrating it in is one thing, but kind of back to that, being able to, those people that are certainly interfacing with customers and kind of the big feedback loops that we see happening now, right? So a lot of organizations, whether it's you're managing accounts or you're part of sort of the marketing staff, there's so much collaboration needed, and it's so fast-paced that, being able to implement something like PostBeyond from a technology perspective and kind of the hub and spoke that we see to us in a way within the enterprise, and kind of section things off and really bring it all together is really kind of the power of it. And I think that's where you have, whether it's salespeople, what they're hearing from prospects or customers daily, or those people that are putting together marketing collateral. And that sort of feedback loop, I think, is a really important part of what we're talking about today, and how that kind of really helps propel the enterprise forward, right, especially in a modern way. So, that really is the key focus for sure.
Well, it's an interesting point that hub and spoke model is often the approach that we recommend with the enterprises that we work with. So that center of excellence, where you're acting as a conduit. There might be some successes happening in one particular area of an enterprise. You want to make sure that other parts of the organization, from a change management point of view, hear about the successes from their peers, and acting as that conduit, because this is disruptive, and a lot of organizations are struggling to figure out where and how to adopt it and adapt to the change. But if you focus on a well-organized model, you focus on addressing the change management circumstances that arise, and ideally design a social selling program for early wins, so that, in like your Jumpstart program or a broader social selling program, shows or is designed to have some early wins on the very near horizon to, again, just foster momentum, give some people some comfort and confidence. I just want to make sure that if there's any other questions.
We have one here from Ivan. Why are B2B, B2C still so bad at tracking ROI from any social media / selling initiative? Are agencies or in-house not up to the task? That's from Irvin.
One of the issues there with tracking ROI goes back to what I was saying earlier in the session, that if you don't design it into it from day one, deciding what are your objectives, how are you going, what sort of strategy and tactics are you going to implement to achieve those, and then planning it all out. Now, I know that sounds easy to say, but oftentimes when we're working with an organization and we're rolling out a social selling initiative, the early questions we have are, I'll tell them, let's put social media aside for the moment. Let's talk about how you measure. Tell me more about what you do now and how you measure it. If they are struggling, day one or current day, to measure and have attribution for their marketing efforts and sales efforts, then it's going to be a struggle for them to prove ROI of social. They can't even prove ROI right now of their existing sales and marketing efforts. So you could end up overburdening social media. So this is where you can want to slow them down a bit and say, I know sometimes social media and social selling can be the bright new shiny thing. It will not be your salvation if you're not doing a good job right now of measuring your own ROI. And beyond attribution, there's also a situation where social selling and social media more broadly can be a bit of what we call silo buster. And if I'm working in a particular business unit in marketing, and I'm driving, for instance, traffic through our initiatives to a particular destination on the corporate website, ideally to convert them to either signing up for a new product, new service, or at least identify themselves as an interested party in whatever it is I'm marketing to them. If I can't get to the source analytics of that particular destination, it will be a struggle for me to prove ROI because I can't close the loop. I can't know that this kind of content on Twitter versus a different type of content on Facebook or a different type of content on LinkedIn or from our blog, for instance, was driving a certain volume of visitors or creating a certain volume of leads on that particular landing page or a particular piece of real estate on the corporate page. So there's a lot of considerations that have to be made up front in order to make sure that ROI is going to be, ultimately the outcome.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Andrew. I just wanted to add to that, you really, you're talking about modern inbound marketing, really, right? And the need for it. And I think a big topic of today when it comes to social selling, too, is kind of modernizing that new buyer and how are they buying, right? When it comes to awareness, they're coming to a website, they're educating themselves. That's where blogging and content in general is so powerful because as a salesperson, you're seeing it more and more have to be a part of your sales process. And the more that can be sort of upfront, whether it's on, your personal LinkedIn page, your Twitter handle, people are looking you up and checking you out during this process. You can be providing that to them. And I think when you tie it back to the inbound strategy that an organization has and, that information that we now are publishing, sure, from an ROI perspective, we've been working hard on that, especially in a B2B context, but in general, when people are coming back to the website from Andrew's post on LinkedIn, really, them signing up to something, whether it's a white paper, it's any sort of content there, having that strategy kind of in place and working, as part of this to that where it's driving leads, driving the sort of outcomes and objectives that we're after. I think that's a really big sort of foundational piece, right, that we, we can publish and distribute, and that's a core part of what we're talking about today. But we really have to zero in on, what is the end goal, on that asset or landing page. What are we, getting people to do? What actions are they taking? And ultimately how that's going to continue to propel us forward.
Well, I think we've all seen lots of examples of organizations that have run very, very quickly into social without sufficient pause for planning and consideration, and they potentially can get fragmented in their strategy, or they can get too far down one particular path, and then they start to question, have they made the right decisions with respect to content or other activities? But proper planning up front, putting the right infrastructure in place from a technology standpoint, getting their content organized, getting the strategy organized is, it's all going to point towards success. We might want to check to see if there's got more questions. Well, great. I don't know if you have any closing comments.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank everyone for joining today. I think, obviously when it comes to both Andrew and myself, we're happy to be in touch. Please reach out to us on Twitter or via email. And we'd love to chat with any of you further about, how we can implement social selling in your business. and go from there. So there's our information. Is there anything you want to add, Andrew?
So if you've got other questions via Twitter, just keep using the hashtag SSSS and reach out to us by email or Twitter, as Chad mentioned. You will be receiving a link to the recording of this that you can share with colleagues, and we look forward to speaking with you at some point in the future. Thanks again.